The cold at Chosin Reservoir was meant to kill men before bullets ever could. Long before the first shot was fired, the mountains of North Korea had already chosen their side. The wind cut like broken glass, the air burned the lungs, and the snow swallowed sound as if the land itself wanted no witnesses. Nothing about that place favored survival. Nothing about it suggested heroism. And yet, in that frozen emptiness, American Marines were about to achieve something so improbable that even decades later, historians would struggle to explain it without lowering their voices in respect. The Chinese Communist commanders believed the outcome was already written. They believed the Americans were isolated, exhausted, and soft. They believed numbers and ideology would crush discipline and experience. They believed the cold would finish the job quietly, without resistance. To them, Chosin was not meant to be a battle. It was meant to be a burial ground. What they did not understand was that the men they were hunting had been trained for moments exactly like this. Moments when everything familiar disappears and only character remains. By late November of 1950, the 1st Marine Division was deep inside North Korea, stretched thin across hostile terrain, operating at the end of fragile supply lines. The terrain was unforgiving, the roads narrow, the mountains endless. Each step forward took effort. Each night demanded endurance. The temperature dropped lower every hour, sinking past levels most men had never experienced. Rifles cracked from the cold, radios failed, wounds froze solid, sleep became dangerous. Still, the Marines held formation. Still, they followed orders. Still, they believed in one another. Among them was Lieutenant Chuin Lee, moving through the snow as if the cold had no authority over him. Every step hurt. Every breath reminded him that survival was not guaranteed. Yet his mind was clear. His focus was sharp. Lee was not thinking about history. He was thinking about the men behind him, men who trusted him to lead them through terrain that looked more like the surface of another planet than a battlefield on Earth. Lee's path to that frozen place had not been simple. He had grown up in California's Sacramento Valley, the son of Chinese immigrants who worked hard, spoke little, and endured much. His father had built a business from nothing, believing in the promise of America, even when America did not always return that belief. Lee learned early that respect was not given freely. It had to be earned, sometimes defended. When he saw his father humiliated for the crime of asking for water, something hardened inside him. He did not grow bitter. He grew determined. When the United States entered World War II, Lee saw a chance to prove what he already knew about himself: that he belonged, that he was capable, that he was American in every sense that mattered. He joined the Reserve Officer Training Corps, dreaming of becoming a pilot, only to be told his vision disqualified him. Many would have accepted that disappointment. Lee did not. Fate redirected him toward the Marine Corps, where excuses were meaningless and will was everything. He was small by Marine standards, light, easily underestimated. When a recruiting officer questioned whether he could carry the load, Lee answered without words. He picked up 2 rucksacks and marched. That was enough. The Marine Corps had found what it needed. Lee did not need to be the strongest. He needed to be unbreakable. By the time war came to Korea, Lee was no longer seeking approval. He was leading men. He trained them relentlessly, even when others rested. He believed the Chinese would enter the war, despite official optimism suggesting otherwise. He believed preparation would be the difference between survival and annihilation. His men grumbled. Some resented the pace. None would question it later. When the Chinese finally struck, they did so with deception and silence. The first encounter came at night, under conditions designed to unnerve even veterans. Gunfire erupted, then stopped. The mountains went quiet. That silence was intentional. It allowed fear to breathe. Units could fracture in moments like that. Lee understood this instinctively. He did not wait. He moved forward alone, drawing fire, revealing enemy positions, turning uncertainty into action. Using language as a weapon, he confused enemy soldiers, bought seconds where seconds mattered, and shattered the illusion of Chinese control. When the firing stopped, his Marines advanced. The enemy withdrew. That night, Lee did more than win a skirmish. He showed his men that fear could be confronted directly and beaten. Wounded soon after, Lee was ordered to evacuate. He refused. He escaped medical care and returned to his unit, injured but present. In war, presence matters. Leaders who remain become anchors. Those anchors hold units together when conditions threaten to tear them apart. Then came the night of November 27th. Darkness fell early, heavy and absolute, swallowing the frozen mountains whole. There was no warning barrage, no gradual escalation. Under the cover of pitch-black night, more than 100,000 Chinese communist troops surged forward across the Chosin area, moving through valleys and ridgelines the Americans believed impassable. Their belief was simple. The Marines were isolated, exhausted, frozen, and about to be erased. The attack struck everywhere at once. Outposts were hit simultaneously from multiple directions. Supply routes vanished into enemy hands. Radios crackled, then fell silent. Units fought blind, guided only by muzzle flashes, and shouted commands swallowed by wind. Encirclement was complete. From the Chinese perspective, this was not a battle. It was an execution. The enemy expected panic. They expected collapse. What followed instead was one of the most disciplined fighting withdrawals in military history. The cold was relentless, not a background condition, but an active, merciless force. Temperatures plunged far below zero. Frostbite took fingers, toes, ears, noses, sometimes within minutes. Rifles and machine guns froze solid unless pressed against warm bodies. Morphine turned to slush. Plasma froze in its bottles. Men slept sitting upright, afraid that lying down would mean never standing again. Breathing itself burned. And still, the Marines fought. They did not fight wildly. They did not waste ammunition or motion. They fought deliberately. Fire teams rotating, fields of fire overlapping, positions abandoned only when ordered. Every withdrawal was planned, every hill contested. This was not desperation. It was control under pressure. Toktung Pass became the hinge upon which everything turned. If it fell, the division would be split, surrounded, and destroyed in pieces. A small American force held the pass against overwhelming numbers, trading space for time, absorbing wave after wave with calm, methodical defense. Every minute they held bought lives elsewhere. Relief was ordered, but relief would demand the impossible. An 8-mile night march through unmapped mountains, in a blinding blizzard, across terrain that offered no mercy and no second chances. At the front of that column walked Chuin Lee. He draped bright identification panels over his shoulders so his men could see him through the storm. His wounds were real. The pain never stopped. Still, he removed his sling. Leaders do not advertise weakness when men are already stretched to the edge. He spoke little. He led by motion, step by step, ridge by ridge, into terrain that punished hesitation. The column moved in near silence, each Marine gripping the jacket of the man ahead. Snow erased landmarks. Maps became suggestions. Compasses spun uselessly. More than once they were lost. Lee chose movement over certainty. Stopping meant freezing. Forward meant a chance. When the wind carried the smell of garlic and the low murmur of Mandarin, he altered course without a word, guiding his men around enemy concentrations invisible in the storm. When contact finally came at first light, he did not order retreat. He formed a line and ordered an advance. Under fire, under exhaustion, under conditions that stripped men down to instinct alone, the Marines moved forward. They closed distance. They shattered resistance. They climbed the final hill as bullets cut the air. Lee was hit again, dropping to one knee. He did not cry out in pain. He shouted to draw fire, to expose enemy positions, to give his men targets. That instinct, to place the unit above the self, was leadership in its purest form. By the morning of December 2nd, Toktung Pass was secure. The line held. The Marines lived. Chosin was not a victory measured by ground taken. It was something greater. It was survival under conditions designed to destroy the human will. It was discipline defeating numbers. The Chinese had manpower. The Marines had mastery. The cold tried to claim them. The enemy tried to erase them. History expected them to vanish into the snow. They did not. History froze at Chosin. But American legend was forged there.